What's up, everybody? Thralls of Metal here. I'm Jammin Jon, bringing you albums 25 through 11 of my top 40 for 2024. Having just shot and edited 26 through 40, I feel a little bit more confident to be sitting here before you today talking about these albums. I'm not going to fill you with a bunch of gobbledygook, as you've already seen the top EPs and 26 through 40, so I'm just going to dive right into it. Coming in at number 25, Caligula's Horse with Charcoal Grace. Got into these guys with Bloom, and then fell out for a minute because I didn't think that In Contact was the best offering, and then furthermore, I didn't really like Rise Radiant either. But this record fully got me back into this band, and I'm really happy that they are back and firing on all cylinders. Big, lush melodies, beautiful vocals, and little riffs akin to the likes of Haken and Leprous. I've always loved this band and their mixture of genty Meshuggah moments, like during the lead section in Gollum. Charcoal Grace, 1, Pray. It just opens up to a huge, epic-sounding jam and then drops back to nearly nothing but a dew-soaked morning, like watching the sunrise come up over the mountaintops. Like taking the most epic road trip ever. Just a giant, very pretty, very groovy at sometimes song, which to me overall just describes the entire vibe of this record. A giant, lush, pretty, groovy masterpiece. Not to mention some of the biggest, most epic, clean vocals I think I've heard all year. I just adore this album and couldn't very well leave it off my list. And if none of those descriptors pique your interest about this band and about this album, the last track, Mute, is 12 minutes long, and something in there will grab you, hands down. Coming in at number 24, yet another band from Indy. I feel like they are just taking over this list, taking over the airwaves by storm, just kicking ass and taking names in the process. Obscene, with Agony and Wounds. I saw these guys a few years ago at Heavy Hell in Indianapolis, thrown by our buddy Dustin, who's in Flesher, was in Demiricus, he's in Ritual now. Anyway, great festival. If you guys have never ever been to Heavy Hell in Indianapolis, I'm going to take this chance to plug that festival right now. Heavy Hell is a great goddamn time, and a good buffer zone from MDF, and then there's Heavy Hell, and then there's all the shows that go on after that. That's where I first saw Obscene, and they absolutely crushed. Intense, riffy death metal that easily compares to bands like Massacre and Dismember, but with some groovy sections compared to bands like Obituary, and then melodic sections that compare to some bands like Carcass. And with bands like that used as comparisons, right then and there, it should have been a no-brainer that it would be on the list, and something that should grace your ears as well. Not only are the riffs sharp as a tack, the drums as punishing as a parent scolding a redheaded stepchild, but aside from the heavy riffs and dark, evil tremolos, blast beats, and syncopated grooves are the absolutely tortured vocals from one Kyle Shaw. Kind of sounds like John Tardy being repeatedly stabbed in the testicles, but he never knows when it's coming, and it surprises him every time. The best way that I would describe this band would simply be obscenely heavy, groovy, dark, and punishing. Meat and potatoes death metal that simply does not give a fuck about anything but being heavy and straight in your face. You don't believe me? Check out the song Rotting Behind the Madness. That jam will easily sate your desire for the rest of this killer album. If that doesn't do it, Oceans of Rot will take good care of you. I've been saying this all year, but when I say that the indie music scene is magic, I mean it. It's nice to know that in such a preachy state, evil still reigns supreme. So check out Obscene. It's number 24 on my list, and I loved it. Coming in at number 23. Not only a record I fell in love with, but a band I fell in love with that I feel like I should have been listening to for a very long time, but I didn't because I'm me and dumb. Number 23, My Dying Bride with Immortal Binding. I'll once again be completely honest, because that's what we do on this channel. I mean, look at me in Morbid Angel, right? Had no choice but to tell you like it was at the time. If you saw our review of this record, then you already know that this was my first time ever sitting down and really listening to this band. I had never jammed a full record. I was not sure what I was getting myself into. I just knew that everybody was really excited to see him at MDF, and that I would be excited too, and then they dropped off the bill, and then that pissed everybody off, and I was sad. Everybody was sad. That's kind of what this band wants you to do, though, because this band is incredibly sad. because it's doom, and it's great doom. And I loved it. As always, Necrotic Nick does his best before we sit down and really jam any record that I've never heard of. He does his best to prepare me for what I'm about to get into. But I don't think anything could have really prepared me for how awesome this record was. This album actually really did a number on me. Listened to it and reviewed it back in April, and to be honest, I'm still sad, which I think is the point of My Dying Bride. Over the last couple years though, again because of this channel, I've become a pretty sizable appreciator of doom. From bands like Esoteric to Candlemass, and then death doom bands like Incantation and Fossilization, I really dig the slow, downtrodden, mopey, melancholic melodies and harmonies and the overall depressive vibes. But within this album, even the big sad is not without beauty. It's gotta be those cellos played to the gray, rainy, dreary skies. What shocked me the most was still how heavy this was. Like in Thornwick Hymn, or the straight death metal moments of the second of the three bells, or the heavy, catchy riffs in the almost 11-minute and 30-second song, The Apocalyptist, that sounds like the Count in Sesame Street if he was A, pissed as fuck, and B, then weeping as he belted those words out. I can see why this band is so popular amongst the fans, even if this band itself struggles to like each other. And it would have been a real treat to see at Maryland Death Fest. Nonetheless, not only do I dig this album, but I get it now. Consider me a My Dying Bride fan, and definitely consider me a fan of this record, which is why it's on the list. Number 22, Necrot with Lifeless Birth. Got into these dudes with their 2020 release Mortal, and I just never really left their camp. Saw them early on in the year, where I got this shirt actually, and they laid absolute waste to both that venue and that stage. I think what I like most about this band and this album is it's not really anything more than just a batch of killer, heavy, awesome riffs. Very meat and potatoes, but man do they present it well. Very much akin to bands like Bolt Thrower, Tomb Mold, Autopsy, or Skeletal Remains. No overwhelming technicalities or bullshit, just awesome, heavy riffs. Songs like Drill the Skull and Winds of Hell are even reminiscent of bands like Morbid Angel, which I love. There isn't a single song on this 7-song offering that isn't a treat to listen to sit back and make stank faces to. There isn't really a single thing I want to do while listening to this band other than sit in a chair, grunt, and bang my head, which is exactly what I got out of this album. That's just the joy of Necrot, and another killer offering from this camp. Coming in at number 21, Glacial Tomb with Lightless Expanse. I think you guys all knew this was coming. I'm just gonna be honest here. You all know me on this channel. You've all seen me do thousands of reviews, and you know what's right up my alley. And bands like Glacial Tomb are it. Sludgy, blackened death metal, downtuned tremolos, wild, dissonant atonal riffs, some shredding leads, and some bone-crushing chugs. Not to mention some crazy drum work and some awesome blackened screams and deep growls. Although it opens strong with Stygian Abattoir, the grossness truly starts in the verse of Void Womb. Something about bendy, down-tuned chugs that grabs me by the boo-boo every single time. That's right, I don't really know where the boo-boo is, but it grabs me there. It's whatever you deem to be the boo-boo, that's where it grabs me. That riff is so goddamn nasty, you'd think I was force-fed lemons. That whole song just lurches and crawls through twists and turns, and the tone of that guitar is simply menacing, which really shines in the breakdowns in Abyssal Host. I think my Stankface personally stuck around for at least a week after hearing that song. Let's not forget the fact that these dudes are quite talented musicians, which is shown in the bridge of Sanctuary and in the lead harmonies of that song as well. Then there's the straight batch of disgustingly heavy riffs found in Seraphic Mutilation. And Jesus Christ, when I jammed this song so I could take the notes to talk about this, it was really tough to turn this record off. I think I jammed the rest of the album before moving on for my notes, which is why it's here. With all the folks I know in Denver, somebody please tell these dudes to hop on a tour and come to Detroit. I need to see them. Don't make me have to fly to Denver, because I will. I'll fly to Denver and watch them there if I have to. I know, Zach, if you're watching this, Zach, I'm going to tag you in this. Book Glacial Tomb and I'll come out there. Fuck it. I know Swinging Noose Productions is back in action, so let's do it up. I need to see this band and I need to buy a shirt. Horns up, fellas. Well done. Coming in at number 20, On to Others with Never Neverland. First of all, the resurgence of goth rock has been hitting pretty damn hard lately. Between this band, another band I'm going to mention later, and then what is it, Dreaming in Neon, right? Or Neon Nightmare, or whatever that crap was with Nate Garrett that sounded like Typo. I don't know. It just seems to be making a return lately, and although I was never really that huge into goth rock when I was a teenager, for some reason it speaks to me now, and that's what this band is. Now, admittedly, I had never heard this band until this record. I just knew that they were at the Pre-Fest for MDF 2025, and I should probably check them out so I wasn't the idiot in the crowd going, what is this? I really think I'm going to get a black leather jacket and maybe some Marlboro Reds and just see what happens. Well, I will say things like, seeing a band before you see them live is probably a good idea. It was definitely a good idea for this record. And not because I would have hated it, but I actually really loved it, and I'm really thankful that I heard it first, so I can learn all these songs and then sing along with this band, which I'm sure is going to happen. While mostly downtrodden rock, there are some actual upbeat and entertaining moments in this record, like the thrashy mix between Motorhead and Baroness on the jam Mama Likes the Door Closed, which she does. I don't know why my mom ever closed the door. We were a church family. Maybe she just closed the door to be closer to God? I don't know. Or the anthemic rocker, Unalive Today. I know that's not what it's called, but I don't want YouTube to take that away from me, so I'm just gonna say Unalive Today. That song is unbelievably catchy about the subject matter that it's catchy about, but I really love that song. Along with Sunshine, that shares the same catchiness, but with music more akin to 80s ballad rock, found perhaps in an album I'll get to later. Now again, I'll be honest, while music like this isn't normally my jam, the mix is perfect, the anthemic vocals somehow fit the vibes, and I just had a lot of fun with this record. I can't wait to dress up in a leather jacket and some sunglasses and maybe a white t-shirt and maybe slick my hair back and maybe again get some Marlboro Reds and pretend like I'm in a readaptation of The Lost Boys. This record is a great time, and I had way more fun really than anything. Yet another wonderful thing I like about music in general, like the song Fame found on this record. It's what this band deserves for this offering. Number 19, Dside with Banished by Sin. Now, say what you will about the dumb-ass AI art cover. I get it, we've already been over this. I think it's stupid. I think they could have done better. They're Dside. They could have outsourced to literally anybody in the world and got someone to do album art for them, and probably for pretty cheap because they're Dside. But they didn't. It doesn't really matter because Dside still has it. In fact, not only does Dside still have their sound and what they do best, they outdo a lot of the youngins here in the game because they're Dside. Butthole tight riffs, blazing leads, Steve's killer and punishing drum work, Glenn's commanding, barking growls. In fact, to this day, one of the things I've always loved most about Dside is Glenn Benton's voice. Just powerful. That man is just out to get you, and his vocals are just, as powerful, as hefty as death growls get. Banished by Sin is packed full of killer riffs, speedy, tight drum work, and unrelenting speed overall. I really, really like the dissonant harmonies in the beginning of Faithless, as well as the killer Morbid Angel tremolos that are in there, as well as the crawling riffs in Ritual Defiled, especially when they half-time it, or the big thrashiness of Banished by Sin with those sick lead harmonies. Again, say what you will about the dumbass art, it's one of the better releases from Dside in recent years, and this band not only still has it, but they still know how to put out killer awesome material. So that's why it's on the list. Moving right along, number 18, Thou with Umbilical. I had literally no idea about this band whatsoever, but Nick just kept saying, "Did you listen to Thou? You gotta check them out. Did you listen to them?" And I kept saying, "Yeah, man, I'll get around to it," and never did. And then Nick would say, "Listen to Thou." And finally I was just like, all right, man, fuck it. I'll listen to him. Wow, I should have listened to him sooner. I didn't because, again, I'm me and I'm stupid, but I should have listened to him sooner because, my God, does this band whoop ass. I'm only going to say this once. Nick was right. I don't think you'll ever hear me say those words again. If you do, the camera's been left on too long and you shouldn't have heard me say it. Go ahead, Nick. Take this minute to pat yourself on the back or grow into more of a evil dick than you already are. I don't know, but I'll let you have this minute. It's yours. This record does in fact rule. Big, nasty, stony, sludgy, droning riffs that you'd find in bands like Crowbar or Bong Ripper or Primitive Man or Chained to the Bottom of the Ocean, and an overall doomy vibe with some hints of post-metal. This album is just plain mean, with cold, anguished screams that are more akin to black metal, guitars and bass that snarl, and drums that have a real piercing pop. Really, when did sludge become so vicious? It didn't until Thou came along and released this record. Songs like Lonely Vigil, with its gross, lurching, slow riffs that make you feel as if you're being buried alive. And then the song I Returned as Chained and Bound to You makes you feel like you're being excavated from that grave you were just buried in, only to be reburied in then a deeper pit. And then, as if that wasn't terrifying enough, Neurosis shows up to guide you into hell. To be honest with you, I felt like I needed to shower after this record was done, and that's why it's here. So, Thou, great job. Great job. Killer record. I loved Umbilical. Please keep music like this coming. I really enjoyed it. Coming in at number 17, Spectre Voice with Sparagmos. Saw these guys at MDF this year. Totally worth it. Starting to give serious thought to moving out to Denver and joining their music scene. Again, not to knock Ohio by any means, or our neighbors just to the east, Indiana, who are crushing it. But goddamn it, does Denver have some awesome bands in it. And Spectre Voice is one of them. Because right from the rip in this album, Be Cadaver is just straight, unbridled evil. Slower than a snail drunk on whiskey, the song creeps through a hole in the seventh circle of hell. The atmosphere on this record is dark, moist, smells of sulfur and rotting flesh. The absolute lowest of demonic growls and the laughter in the distance is about as unsettling as the cover of this record itself. Bearing comparisons to bands like Mortiferum, Crypts, Incantation, and Phrenolith, it was kind of hard not to love this album. All the nasty, low-end tremolos, those gigantic pounding drums, and the terrifying vocal performance with the layers and layers of growls, voices, chants, and God knows what else simply caved in both my skull and my chest, as this record is absolutely heavy and suffocating. Especially about 2 minutes and 30 seconds into Red Feast condensed into one, the dissonant atonal harmonies I found to be quite catchy, but it's the atmosphere that really propels this whole record into a horrifying territory. Considering most of these songs, albeit only 4 of them, are fairly lengthy, they never lost my attention. And that's why this record is here, as well as being terrifying, horrifying, and heavy. I love this record. I couldn't put it down. I've jammed this record a whole bunch, and that's why it's on my list. Coming in at number 16. Hey, Indianapolis, do you guys just want to take over the channel? You're taking over the music scene for sure. So much killer shit that came out this year. Number 16, Mother of Graves with The Periapt of Absence. From the first 20 seconds of this album, it's quite apparent that these dudes like Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride, which are pretty close to each other anyway to begin with, but it's very apparent, and there's not a goddamn thing wrong with that. So many amazing melodic moments in this album, and for as dark as this record is, quite a few triumphant harmonies and melodies, which, in contrast, don't seem to really work with each other, but they are oddly triumphant and bright, yet still in a gloomy catatonia sort of way. Right from the get-go, the opening track, Gallows, is a prime example of this, contrasted by the typo-negative gothic vibes found in the following track, Shatter the Visage. The record flows beautifully from track to track, the songs are well constructed, and even in the prettier moments, the sun never shines. The melancholic, somber melodies in the beginning of A Scarlet Threnody are amongst my favorite moments in this whole album. Because when the vocals finally do kick in, it makes it sound as if Brandon is pleading to be heard in his solace. And then if you're not fully devastated at this point, which you very well may be, the powerfully haunting track, As the Earth Fell Silent, just kind of puts the depression at full mast. It's a miracle I wasn't back on Zoloft by the end of this record. A beautiful, downtrodden, sad beast. Yet another killer release from a band in Indianapolis. You guys, once again, are absolutely crushing the scene, and Mother of Graves, damn good job on a damn good record. Very impressed, and that's why you're here. Number 15, Necro with Swords of Dajjal. I think I said that right, but I don't care. I'm pretty certain that I'm becoming a black metal fan. Yes, this is the case. It is true, finally. Everybody jump up and down, or just be dark and be dark. And that's what black metal is. But this record is fucking awesome. If memory serves correctly, I almost gave this record 5 stars when we reviewed it, because I loved it that damn much. From the gut-wrenching, black, icy cold screams, to the fucking amazing melodies and harmonies, to the killer drum performance, all the cymbal work is on point. To those beautiful dissonant tremolos, and the fact that this sounds like it's played in a cave, man, I think a new fan of a once misunderstood and hated genre has been born. I loved the layered and theatric vocals in The Fifth Door, and just simply the fact that that song is a vicious, riffy beast. Everything on this record is catchy. The guitar work is simply amazing, and the crunch on the lead is masterfully done. Remember before Garia got their new lead singer? This guy reminds me a lot of him, actually, and maybe that's why I like his vocals. As if the song titles weren't a dead giveaway to the fact that this record might have some Middle Eastern melodies and vibes to it. The jam on the end of The Fifth Door should very easily lay those suspicions to rest. Then there's the death metal vibes and Demowery, and the just absolute blasty beast that is Total Obliteration, which makes sense because it's a song called Total Obliteration. Why wouldn't it completely obliterate everything? Even listening to this again while I took my notes, I realized it should have been higher on the list, and it's unfortunate that there were just so many killer records this year, because if I could have put this much higher on the list, I would have. But damn you, 2024, and all of your killer releases that made it nearly impossible to make a list of even 40. Nonetheless, this release from Necro is simply fucking awesome, and YouTube, help me out. If there's more out there that sounds like this, I want to know about it. Please put it in the comments. I need to hear more music like Necro, so please, once again, if there's more out there like this, please send it my way. Coming in at number 14, Pallbearer with Mind Burns Alive. I was actually kind of a late bloomer in regards to this band. I first heard of them with Heartless. And while I did really like that album, it wasn't until Forgotten Days that I really got into this band. And knowing what both of those records sounded like, I think I came into this with that same mindset, but I ended up getting so much more out of this album. Just when I thought I couldn't be sad and depressed enough, enter Mind Burns Alive. To be honest, I'm not really sure I'm ever in a great headspace to listen to this record. While it is quite subdued and rather pretty, it is just straight downright sad. And I try not to be sad like that anymore these days, but I swear to God, listening to this record, I was just like, man, Bummersville. But in pretty much the prettiest way possible. It sounds like the opposite of a great review or recommendation, but I couldn't get this record out of my mind because as sad as it is, it's actually a really great album, I think, to play for just about anyone. Throw a fat joint into the mix and you've got, again, some real beauty. I like that this record flows so well between a stillness and a captivating gaze. The title track in itself is actually a prime example of this statement. Starting out with a heavier riff and then falling back to calm, clear waters. The chorus of Signals? Man, something so emotional, yet so catchy. That melody in itself is something else. And then you have the vocal harmonies of Daybreak, not to mention that crying lead and some brief glimpses of sun rays. Man, never in my life have I been so happy to be so sad. Please don't worry about me though. I called my therapist after the last track with disease, and I'm good now. But yeah, this record is great. I listened to it a bunch, in spite of the fact that it is so sad and depressing. I'm back in therapy now, we're good. But yeah, awesome fucking record, good job, Pallbearer. Coming in at 13, Ancients with Beyond the Reach of the Sun. This record was my first real sit-down with this band. It actually came as a recommendation from Jeff over at Gas Masks and Hand Grenades that said it sounded a lot like Mastodon and Opeth. That right there was enough for me to listen to it. Even though this was my first real sit down with this band, even from the opening track, Forbidden Sanctuary, I felt like I knew them and I felt like it was home. Do you guys remember falling in love with Opeth before Ghost Reveries, or with Mastodon that first moment you heard Crack the Sky? This record to me is kind of like that. It's kind of the best of both camps in that era of time. If you throw in a little Baroness and a little Burst, it's kind of like you have this perfect mesh of four really awesome bands thrown together on a record that is not only mixed well, but is jam-packed full of awesome musicianship. The growls in this record are just as good as the clean vocals, and the instrumentation, again, with comparisons to bands like Opeth and Mastodon, they do such a great job of capturing both those vibes while keeping it uniquely theirs. I know that Nick and I argued about Ken's clean vocals, but I'll be damned if it doesn't sound like a mixture between Brondaler and Mikkel Åkerfeldt. That's what he sounds like, and I will take that to the grave. I can't think of two vocalists in the game right now that it would be better to be compared to. The guitar work is spot on, great melodies, great harmonies, even some downright heavy machine gun riffing found in songs like Despoiled. Then the serene beauty in the beginning of Melt the Crown. Man, I could jam this record all day, every day, and not be upset. Yet another album I wish I could have put higher on the list. I like how this record is just as catchy in the softer moments as it is in the heavier moments. Again, enter Melt the Crown. While it would be simple to just pick this record apart track by track, we already did that. And if you haven't done so, watch our review of this album. But once again, I'll just say this. This record takes me back to the best moments in the bands that this band emulates. Not to mention the mix of this album, the tones, the levels, everything in my mind is sheer perfection. I have to see this band live. The song Celestial Tyrant is literally everything I love about prog metal. Great album. Please do yourselves a favor, you guys. Check this record out and jam it until you don't want to jam it anymore, and then jam it some more. Coming in at number 12, Ripped to Shreds with Sanchi. This whole damn record just bleeds Entombed, Dismember, and Autopsy. So goddamn riffy, melodic, sometimes doomy, and always in your fucking face. Not to mention amazing lead work, nasty tremolos, and even some grindy shit fits that work in tandem with the over-the-top vocals, blast beats, and extreme precision. Songs like Force Fed, Sacrificial Fire, and Horrendous Corpse Resurrection had me wanting to throw my office chair into the glass into my stereo and then stomp around on the floor in the broken glass shreds, cutting my feet and growling like a caveman. That's how good those songs were. I wouldn't actually do that because I like my stereo and my chair, my feet, but it really had me wanting to do that. And then you have the nasty, stank-faced opening to Vision of Sin. Mirror of Darkness had me wanting to visit a plastic surgeon to get my face back to its normal amount of ugliness versus the perma-stank face that was created with that song. To be honest, everything on this record rules, from catchiness to the fact that it is so goddamn heavy and riffy. When I thought they couldn't top Nubian, nope, I was wrong. It's this. It's this all day. Good job, Ripped to Shreds. I love the fuck out of this album. Coming in at number 11, Judas Priest with Invincible Shield. Now, to be quite honest, without the discography ranking that we did, I don't know if this record ever would have made it on any list ever. I was not a Judas Priest fan until we ranked the discography. And to be honest, I was super excited for this record because coming out of that ranking, leaving off with Firepower, I was like, man, I can't wait to see what happens next. And I got exactly what I thought I would get, plus a whole lot more. First of all, Rob's vocals are still 100% on point. To keep those pipes in that great of shape is just something super incredible all on its own. The riffs in this record, the leads, the mix, just everything to me I thought sounded perfect. I never stopped banging my head the entire time, and the gigantic shit-eating grin that was plastered across my face while I listened to this record was amazing. Outside of Thralls of Metal, I work at a truck stop. That's what I do for my day job. I'm the manager of a truck stop in Ohio, just off the turnpike. And one of the reasons I took that job, oddly enough, is to be able to meet all sorts of different people. And I promote the shit out of this channel at that job. And so believe me, this summer, everybody that I saw wearing anything as far as like classic heavy metal is concerned, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, whatever, I would recommend this record. I'd say, have you heard the new Judas Priest? Because in my mind, this record is up there with Firepower and Painkiller and Turbo and all the records I really like from Judas Priest. It fires on all cylinders. This record is an absolute banger. There are songs that I will certainly skip to. Songs like As God Is My Witness and the groovy banger Trial by Fire. This is a killer record, and it just narrowly escaped my top 10, but it doesn't mean that it should have been on the top 10. To be honest with you, if the top 10 could have been top 20, this record would deserve that. This is an amazing record. I absolutely dug it. I would recommend that if you guys haven't listened to it yet, that you give it a shot, because goddamn it, is it awesome. That brings me to the end of this segment of my top 40. If you guys like what you saw, please hit the like and subscribe button, as we do stuff like this all the time. We also now have memberships. For just 99 cents, you can become a member of Thralls of Metal. We offer members-only live streams. We're probably going to come up with some more to do here a bit later, but as we're new to the memberships and trying to get our feet wet, we offer members-only live streams. We've already done one already. One of the cool perks of that is you get a special emoji. That's right, you guys. You get a booger troll, because the minds as to what they are here at Thralls of Metal, Nick and myself, Shredlord, Miller, Rin, the thing that we could come up with that would be the most fitting for our fans would be a booger troll, because we are in fact stupid. I know Nick has added more emojis along the way. We will more than likely get another creation such as the booger troll. He does need a family and friends. Family and friends are important to have. We also have our store down at the bottom here. You can find thrallsofmetal.com. We have shirts, we have hats. We should probably do more with that website, but we haven't yet. I would like to add things like grinders and flags. Let me know what you think about that. I think we need grinders. I think you all know why. Last but not least, thank you to everyone that has become a part of this channel. We are almost at 20,000 subscribers. In fact, the giveaway video for said 20,000 subscribers should be appearing shortly after I release my top 10 albums, which is coming soon, I assure you. But nonetheless, thank you for being a part of this. If you're new to this channel, we do album reviews, discography rankings, discussion forums, Nick's never-ending collection updates. We do live streams, just a multitude of things. We do them all for you guys because you guys are absolutely awesome. So one more big thank you from us here at Thralls of Metal, most notably me, because I'm the only one in the room. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and we will catch you later.